What up? Sala Falava Olotwingo Estella. My pronouns are she, her, hers, sis, and uso.
What's good, family? ¿Cómo está? This is Gabriel. My pronouns are he, him, his.
If you're just joining us for season 2, welcome. And if you are back, much alofa and gratitude for your continued support.
And we're going to take a moment to just reintroduce ourselves for folks who haven't been rocking with us and may be new to our Continental Shifts podcast. I'm one of the co-hosts, Gabriel Anthony Tanglao, first generation born Filipino educator, union activist out here on the East Coast, New Jersey to be exact, North Jersey to be even more exact, upon land that was cultivated by Lenape people prior to European colonization. I now work full-time in our labor movement with the New Jersey Education Association.
And again, I am Estella Owima Church, daughter of immigrants by way of Savai'i Samoa and Calabar, Nigeria. I am a secondary theater teacher, union leader, and artist laboring on the land of the Tongva people, known to most folks as Los Angeles.
And last season, we were joined by amazing guests who shared their perspectives, insights on issues, from educators to community organizers and union leaders, and the issues that they face daily. Specifically, we got into the ways in which these issues affect Pacific Islander and Asian communities.
This season, what you can expect is more time with just the two of us. We want to get to know one another better, and we want our guests, our listeners, to also get to know the two of us better. So join us as we continue to build our friendship and work through some of our reflections out loud together in our education spaces and union labor spaces. This season, season 2, we'll be getting into some takeaways and learnings, better get some unlearnings from season 1, issues around self-care, unionism, and more.
And on this episode, we're going to discuss the power of reflection. And as educators, we know how important it is for us to take time to reflect. It's important for us to reflect on the lessons that we're sharing with students, reflect on the growth and the ways that we're engaging and building relationships with them. It's important for us to make adjustments throughout our craft. And really, it's even more important as union leaders to be able to reflect and navigate the context in which we exist as we build and organize power for our communities and for our teaching profession. But this past year has been challenging for so many reasons. And I know that's perhaps an understatement, an obvious statement. And Estella, a lot of our conversations and even the creation of the Continental Shifts podcast was born out of our friendship. And I've been wanting to kick it with you and get caught up with you. And just I know that the teaching profession itself leaves very little space for time to reflect. It's almost like a luxury, even though we know it's so important. So on 2 angles, one, I miss you, sis. I want to know how you're doing. And I can't wait to have this conversation with you so that not only I could get caught up on where you are, where your thinking is over this past year, but also our guests get caught up with you in this crazy year that we've experienced. So question for you, do you feel like you've had enough time to take pause and reflect throughout the journey of this past year? And what are you thinking about in terms of this moment presently in your summertime? Have you had a chance to pause and reflect and think about this past year?
Short answer, absolutely not. The year, I mean, like you said already, understatement, it was a crazy, hectic year. More so than reflection, I think summer has been about recovery, because Well, maybe there was some time for reflection in between there, because um I was drowning, bro. Like this this year was unreal and unlike anything I've ever experienced. Like, I know, like, even my husband Brandon was like, I feel like you say that at the end of every year. And so I'm like, do I? And maybe I do, but this year, no, I swear it was different. You've had those years where, like, your assignment isn't what you hoped it was going to be, or they admin moves your classroom, or, they complicate things for you and kids unnecessarily. But this year it was like, nobody really knew what was going on. Nobody could help me figure out what was going on. The pandemic was not slowing a thing down. I'm stressed. Kids are stressed. I'm losing friends and family. Kids are losing friends and family. Like, there was no respite, no reprieve anywhere to be found. And folks had like the audacity to be like, oh, but we're still doing testing. And, oh, but, SBAC is still on, and Renaissance testing and all this stuff. And I'm like, what's the point? Why? I don't understand what the point is of doing any of that or all of that. The message was, take care of yourself, guys. We need you. But also, let's meet on Saturday. And also, let's, plan in all your off time. And so it was bad. It was really, really bad. But what became very clear in the few, I guess, moments I did have to pause was the profession itself is absolutely unsustainable. Like, my role as an educator is unsustainable. And, I saw a few memes and posts going around. I was like, if you thought we had a teacher shortage before the pandemic, just wait. Then I saw another one that really put that into perspective. It says something like, we don't actually have a labor shortage. We literally have a people shortage because of the pandemic. And that one hit hard. And I was like, yeah, like, that's it. Like, we were already losing teachers. Teachers have already been leaving the profession for years now. The pandemic did not make it any easier for anyone. And so even more teachers left, but we lost teachers. We lost colleagues. We lost friends. And that's what I realized is unsustainable. And what made it clear, and I'll go ahead and share this, but in the last few weeks of school, well, I'll say the last month and a half, right? Our return to the physical classroom date was set. And I have a couple of medical conditions that I was really concerned about. And so I went to my doctor to get some of my accommodations met. And one of the things he said when I was in his office was, I really just think, and I don't know what he was thinking, but he said to me, I really just think teachers are being lazy, and you've been at home this whole year not working, and you just are trying to ride the rest of this year into your 3 month of no work over the summer. And he went on and on and on. And I was just like, all right, bro, like, are you helping me with my accommodations or what? Are you putting me on like new meds or what? Like, what? I need a solution. I'm here because I have an issue, and I need you to, I'm not here for you to tell me what, who I am as an educator. And I lost it. I started crying in his office, which I think made me more mad that I like punked out and cried in his office. Like, that's what I was thinking. But I was so angry because I was like, not working. Like, how dare you? I've been at this computer from sun up to dusk every day since this pandemic started, not taking one break and stressing myself out, like not sleeping, trying to figure out every little trick I could to meet kids' needs. If it was translations needs or closed captions or trying to find all the apps that I could use to help kids. And he had the nerve to tell me that he just felt like teachers were lazy. And he said, there's been teachers in and out this hallway all week. And, you know, I was just like, I can't with you right now. So I'm going to go find a new doctor and get the care that I need, because this is not it. Like, I'm not. And so I left, and like my last 2 months of school and most of the summer has been doctor's appointments. So you asked what's going on. That's what it's been. I've decided, like, I'm not dealing. It's in my adult life, I've been dealing with like doctors, just the worst. But that was like the last straw. I was just, I can't do this anymore. I had already realized that this was unsustainable, but like I have literally, and I know teachers have done this, you know, there's something wrong, toothache maybe, but you're like, I'm gonna put off that dentist appointment because kids got finals. Let me just get the kids through midterms or finals real quick. I'll make the appointment for Saturday, knowing damn well the dentist is not open. Like, all, you know what I mean? Like, it's little stuff like that. And so you put your appointments off, you put off truly caring for your mind, body, and soul. And I've been doing that for too long, like putting off every appointment because, you know, can't make it there on time or whatever. And always putting students first. And I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I've lost way too many colleagues and family this past year and a half, nearly 2 years now, to keep living like this. But that was my biggest like reflection and takeaway is profession is unsustainable. And I no longer want to, like, I don't want that to be my badge of honor. You know, I made it through the school year without taking a day off. No, I'm good. I'm over that.
First, fam, just the fact that you are sharing, that you're prioritizing your health and well-being is something that I'm really glad to hear. It's something that I think so many of our educator listeners can relate to, of what you were sharing in terms of putting off your appointments, putting off your health, the ways that we make sure we prioritize being fully present in our teaching profession, only to be met with, you know, a public narrative that was shared through your doctor, but a public narrative that I think many folks who are not in the teaching profession may think or assume about educators. And it's just so wild that, especially in this moment where the awareness of how challenging the teaching profession is, when folks started to, early stages of the pandemic, have to really wrestle with childcare issues and things. There was that early moment where it's like, wow, these educators are really something special, only to devolve into this same narrative of lazy teachers who have these months off. And by the way, when they say months off for the summer, I want to take a quick question. Estella, how often have you really taken a break throughout your teaching career? I'm talking about your whole teaching career. How many summers do you think you stopped fully and did not work in any capacity and took a full month's break?
Never,
right?
No teacher ever. No, never. Summer is filled with professional developments the first week or two after school, or your summer is cut short because you got to come back 2 weeks early for training. If you teach any AP classes, guess when your training is? Over the summer. If you happen to be an AVID school, an AVID coordinator, guess when your training is? Also over the summer, usually right after that AP training. If you have to administer the SBAC or any standardized test, guess when that training is? In the summer. And how many middle school and secondary or elementary teachers have more than one hat, which means you're going through all those trainings in the summer. And then sometimes if you're a secondary teacher, elementary too, you don't know what your assignment is for the following school year oftentimes it can change up until the day before the school year starts. So guess who gets to plan a whole semester of curriculum in 24 hours for some class? Maybe there's a class I haven't even taught before on my schedule, right? Like summer is not rest time usually. Summer is, and then on top of that, most educators are picking professional developments they would love to take to enhance their skills in the fields and content areas that make them happy and feed their passions. And so we do a lot of that. And then there are a lot of our colleagues who are in states that don't have collective bargaining rights that have to work an additional 2 or 3 jobs over the summer to pay the bills. How many stories have we heard of teachers in states that are doing Uber and Postmates and everything else in between to keep their roof over their kids' heads or their families' heads, right? Like summer is not downtime. And if you are in a state with collective bargaining rights, guess what? I was already paid for this time. Like I did the work. The time off or money that I get was already taken from my other paychecks the last 10 months. And so I've earned that. So all this BS about teachers having summers free, it's an absolute myth, no matter what state you are in. If we are lucky, we might be able to squeeze a month out of that summer. And I'm saying those are teachers who are close to retirement. And if I'm wrong, then correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm willing to bet it's teachers who are, they've already given 30 years to this, and they figured out how to get their month out of summer.
That's the truth. That is the truth. And I can relate to that. When I was in the classroom, I don't recall a time where I didn't have layers of professional development or leadership training or investing some time in the preparation for the next year. And also staying within the theme of our episode, taking some time to reflect. Because when we think about the trajectory of our craft, really the early career educators that are listening, if you're new to the profession, you can relate to how difficult even those early years are, especially. And you're just really trying to stay afloat and wrap your mind around all the responsibilities that you are now taking on. And no matter what grad program you may have gone through or undergrad program to help prepare you for this, there's nothing like that first moment where you are standing in front of a classroom full of young people and you are the adult in the room with the responsibility for their social, emotional, academic, intellectual well-being. And it's one of those moments that, we as early in our career struggle through and push through and really hone in, from lesson plannings, professional development, all of the things that you're naming, everything in between. And then the summertime hits. That's the opportunity where you can take a look back and see how you can improve and grow so that we can continue to be better practitioners within the classroom. And for the record, educators that are entering the profession oftentimes are not choosing it because it's a lucrative career, right? It's a career that is a calling. It's a passion. So when you talk about the sustainability, and as I talk about the arc of our journey, we would want a moment for educators to recover, like you said, to reflect and improve and grow, and to be balanced in a way that creates the sustainability, because we want those seasoned educators to be in there with our young people, because those are the ones that are going to be able to serve them the best. And really, in this moment, as you share your reflections, it's making me wonder. It's making me wonder, what would it take for people in the public space to continue to raise these issues and really challenge some of those narratives? But part of what we're doing here is doing a little self-reflection. So I digress from that point, because we will be able to talk about some of these issues later on in this season. So I just wanted to introduce our next question to you, in part because you have talked about being involved in in the union. I know that you also are wearing many hats, right? Not just teaching. And reflecting on the many hats that you wear and naming that you feel like the pace and the situation is unsustainable, what reflections have you had that could make this work sustainable, that you can make adjustments to have a balance and to prioritize your well-being and to prioritize your growth and to stay grounded in the joy actually of the teaching? That's the other piece, is the joy. But what adjustments do you feel like are even possible as you've thought about the past year and the year to come?
I think so. Like a couple years ago, I was in a district that it was brutal. Like the superintendent was just coming after me. And I was at a real low. Like my depression and anxiety was like at its worst, so much so that, the students I was really close to were just like, "Miss, you're not okay. And we can see you're not okay." Which was probably the time when I made the decision to leave that district. But I was thinking my summer reflection or note to self was like, self-care, like go get a massage and, get my hair done and do things for me. But that wasn't it either. And I think I'm sad to say that like it took the pandemic to help me get to this point. But one of my goals has always been to get my doctorate, but I also did not want to leave the classroom right away. I wanted to make sure that I like put in years and time in the classroom and really honed my craft. And I had a mentor tell me early on as an early educator, like, the first 3 years are rough, but like once you get the first 3 years down, your curriculum is sort of set. And when I got to year 5 and my curriculum wasn't like set, I thought something was like wrong with me. Like I'm doing something wrong, but no, I have remained as reflective and rooted in praxis as I can be. And so my curriculum often changes drastically from year to year as I continue growing. That is one of my joys, right? Like unlearning and unpacking and taking feedback from students and trying to make it better and improve it every single year. Some of the projects I taught year 1, I probably will never teach again because I was like, oh, that was stupid. Why did I ever think that would work? Well, it's not okay. And I shouldn't have done that. So that's one of the joys. The second thing, I think I already touched on it, but for students to know me so well that they can see that I'm not well. And they're like, Miss, I had a student president of our theater department just be like, Miss, I'm canceling rehearsals all this week. I made the executive decision. You were going home at 3:00. You know what I mean? And to have students like step up and like really take care of me in that way, kind of embarrassing, but also I love you guys. And we're going home at 3:00 because you're right. Right. So this year, but anyway, the pandemic, what it taught me is that, and I read an article in a magazine a few months back, and the title was something like, there is no such thing as labor of love. And that those two, we shouldn't be in the habit of putting those two together. And while I truly enjoy being an educator and I love every second with every single student I am honored to share space with, the labor aspect of it is not where the love is. The nonstop professional developments, the ridiculous pushback from the media, the lack of budget where we needed to support students, the having to go to excessive meetings before school, after school, on the weekends. That labor is not where the love is. And I don't ever want to confuse the two. And oftentimes people will ask, like, do you enjoy your job? And my response is always, I enjoy my students. I enjoy them, right? Like the politics and administration and school districts and policies, none of that. I have zero love for any of that. Not like at all. And so that's I guess the conclusion I came to. And so me trying to practice self-care and find a balance is now rooted in my love is for myself, my family, my students, my community, not for the labor. So I will do as much as I am able to do, but not at the expense of my sanity and my health, which is what I have been doing. And I gotta be honest, bro, like I have been struggling, like really struggling mentally, and been battling depression now for nearly 8 years. And this past year, it definitely went some places that I have never been before. And so I just was like, I can't, especially after that response from my doctor, I was just like, I don't know that I will survive. Like if I keep like literally survive, I'm not going to live through this if I can't separate the actual labor of it from all the things that bring me joy about it. And I hope that makes some kind of sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And one of the things about your story that just is sticking with me is that your student was giving back to you some of the love that I imagine you are pouring into them. And that moment, that story is really resonating in part because it's that relationship, that bond that helps us get through the more difficult moments. And I know over this past year, part of the things that exacerbate some of the struggles that folks experience is being isolated and being disconnected. As much as we are Zooming, that's not the same as being eye to eye, face to face, present with our students, with our community, with our colleagues, friends, and family. And, I just wanted to say to you, fam, that I love you too. And I want to continue to just make more space for us to be able to share these thoughts. And I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners, because that's so real. That's so real. And I know that folks listening can definitely relate to that struggle. And those of you who are tuning in, it's something that we've talked about in this journey with Continental Shifts podcast is that, creating the space for each other and making sure that we stay bonded in our relationships in our community is, for me, for sure, something that helps me survive through these difficult times. And I was actually reflecting on last season, Estella, and how much joy and how much love and how much energy, how much it fed me. So I wanted to ask you, and also reflecting upon our last season, did you want to mention or lift up one of your favorite moments from the last season that resonate with you?
First of all, thank you, bro. I appreciate that. And I love you too. There were so many moments last season. It definitely was part of the reason why I think I was able to hang on and get through the school year. Just every time we got on together, every time we had a guest on, I was reminded that I am not alone. I am not losing my mind completely. What I am saying in staff meetings is making sense, even though I am being ignored. And what I say in school board meetings is making sense. I know that I am not I'm not alone. And so that was huge. I think my biggest takeaway from the whole season is that everything everything my practice has been rooted in, or everything my practice has grown to become, was reinforced and celebrated in season 1. So part of my practice, or who I am as an educator, like at my core, I truly, truly, truly believe that ethnic and racial or intersectional identity development for young folks is next to relationships with educators. But I think that is like one of the most important roles that I play in the classroom. And that was part of our reasoning for creating this show. And the other thing is ethnic studies, or the need for liberatory and truly revolutionary curriculum in classroom spaces. Those two things were huge takeaways from season 1. And so I feel vindicated, feels like a strong word, but I guess relieved that the progress I'm making as an educator and really as a whole human being, I think I'm proud of that evolutionary process, I guess, is what I took away from season 1.
I love that. I love that reflection. And as I think about season 1, I definitely feel vindicated is a strong word, but I definitely feel affirmed for sure. And hearing it from so many of our guests that come from different areas, different walks of life, even different cultural backgrounds, even though we are one as Asian and Pacific Islander, we know we've kind of like unpacked the nuances of how complex that is. I remember reading, just wanted to share, The Latinos of Asia by Anthony Campo is a book that I was inspired to read after season 1 to get more familiar with some of my own Filipino roots along my journey. And one of the learnings post season 1 was around how the Asian and Pacific Island identity was actually a political strategy, in part to unify a group of people that were marginalized and divided in this white supremacy racial structure. And that's something that is part of my reflection, because season 1 not only has so many gems, but also inspired me to just continue learning and continue reflecting, continue the deepening of my understanding around my own identity. And that's just something that I am still carrying with me. But to shout out one of the quotes from one of the episodes, aspiring radical elder, is a frame that just stuck with me. And I'm like holding on to that. I'm cultivating that seed. Tavai, just like shouting her out for that gem. And as we think about the cultural connections and the cultural work that this podcast aspires to, and really just thinking about our wayfinding as we navigate the spaces, we also talked about how hip hop is actually a cultural movement, a cultural revolution that's been so influential on both your and my life. Interestingly enough, growing up on the East Coast, my musical taste is very much influenced by that. And I know you out on the West Coast have that same vibe. But one of the artists, it's actually a pair of artists that came to mind as we were thinking about this episode's theme on the power of reflection, was the Reflection Eternal collaboration by Talib Kweli and High Tech. And I went back into the archives of some of that music and took a look at one of the albums that they put out in the year 2000. And that hip hop connection actually reminded me very much of our collaboration here. So I wanted to share some lyrics from one of the songs and use that as a prompt for my next question. but the Train of Thought album from 2000, Memories Live is the name of the song. And the lyrics go, especially when I'm bringing back sweet memories, I got deep into my mind. See, I got the treasury that float through my head like a sweet melody. What you telling me, reflection is a collection of memories. Definitely, this is how hip hop was meant to be. Eventually, I knew I'd run into high technology. It was only a matter of time, like centuries. Check the recipe or technique to how it sounds so sweet. I freak with word power. My friend speaks with beats. And there's a few things that resonate with me from that lyric. And to the listeners, if you haven't heard that album, or if you want to listen to that song, we'll make sure to share that in our content, so you have a link to listen to it. But Estella, when we talk about the power of reflection, when we talk about taking time to recover, when we talk about our cultural journey and sustaining ourselves, hip hop music is definitely one of those things that I know we've both agreed that helps feed us and sustain us. And this song and these lyrics, there's a couple of gems that are speaking to me. But my question to you is, what from either these lyrics or a song that comes to mind, what inspires some reflection, or what music do you like to listen to that helps inspire your own reflections when you have that time and space?
What if I threw that question right back at you? What is it that's resonating in that clip that you just shared with us?
Yeah. Okay. So actually the collaboration was interesting to me, but that last line is definitely something that resonates. Word power and speaking with beats. So I'll actually take a moment to lift up how in our collaboration from last season, it was just so beautiful to see the different gifts and skill sets that you brought to our collaboration with the Continental Shifts podcast. So for folks who are listening, thinking about, everything that Estella shared with regards to the teaching profession and the craft and the time and attention and energy that she pours into her students and into the classroom, as well as the many hats that she wears as a union leader. I have to name that in this collaboration, even though you said labor of love shouldn't go together, there's so much love that shows up through your labor in this work, specifically with just how the season 1 came out, and also how we support each other in this Continental Shifts journey. So when I think about that collaboration between Talib Kweli and High Tech, I feel like you got the beats and you are the rhythm in the background of all this. And actually you have your word power too. So maybe that's not an apt analogy, but I would say that, part of what you've created here for me as a person who is trying to find the words to articulate my journey, I'd say you're like the high technology, the beats, the producer, all the things that you bring to the space. So that's one thing in the reflection eternal quote that resonated with me about us.
I appreciate that. I'll take that labor of love just because the way you said it. I appreciate it. And I definitely feel the same way. I think the line that is sticking out to me is reflection is a collection of memories. Just and this kind of takes me back to, spots or parts of season 1, but so much of what I think we need as people, as educators, as folks of color, as PI folks, Asian folks, Black folks, so much of what we need, I think we already know, right? Like, I think so much of what we need moving forward, we've already been gifted from our ancestors in a whole lot of ways. And a large part of our journeys are just sort of uncovering or rediscovering what's already underneath. And I think about Toni Morrison's work and Zora Neale Hurston's work, and the way that they, even Shakespeare to an extent, deal with ideas of memory or remembrance. And I think that even came up in one or two of our episodes. Somebody quoted Toni Morrison. I can't remember if it was Tavaye or Courtney, but I remember that coming up. And so thinking about reflections as a collection of memories, as gifts or things that I've already gotten from you, other colleagues, folks on the show, students, ancestors, and then having to live through it to uncover and try to find the time to reflect, to really like think back, or I guess process what we've just gone through. But those memories are definitely already there, or the lessons, I should say, are already embedded in those memories. But that's sticking out, because that, I think the show has been a way for me to process out loud. And so the few moments I've had to reflect, it's been because of you, because of us, like being together and checking in and just keeping each other grounded. And so, yeah.
And also the collection of memories makes me think about the ancestors and how you're describing it. It's like the history, when the true history is uncovered through decolonizing our curriculum, indigenizing our curriculum, discovering the truth from our own authentic lens and experience as people who are in this racialized system. It's something that's been liberating. I mentioned the one text that I started to read. One of my comrades lent me a book, The Patron Saints of Nothing. And that's a new text that I'm reading, and seeing a lot more of the reflection of my Filipino people around me and in my own spaces is something that's one of those things that reminds me of reflection being a collection of memories, tying it to the ancestors, but also being grounded in this present moment. So reflection and the power of reflection. As we approach the wrap up to this episode 1, Estella, I know we've been grounding ourselves in a reflection space, but I'm going to pivot us to looking ahead into the season, because you laid it out so nicely. I actually would like for our listeners to get a taste of what's ahead. As we mentioned at the top of this, we have our next episode focused on self-care. We're going to be talking about education and the union work, and also the cultural work. Estella, what are you looking forward to most in this season 2 of the Continental Shifts podcast?
I think selfishly, just processing out loud, like this whole season might wind up being a season of reflection, and how we unpack self-care, unpack, what we're going through in the classroom, the debate on CRT, which is not really a debate, but we'll get into that, union laborism, and really throughout the season, throughout each episode, continuing to circle back to season 1 and outline or lay out all of those gems that folks dropped on us, and putting them into practice, right? Like, as we continue to check in, like we're still on summer break, but like how am I going to squeeze those things into my classroom practice this semester?
Love it. I'm looking forward to that reflection. I'm looking forward to these conversations. I am fired up for season 2. And I know our listeners, those of you who have been listening to season 1 along the way. Just wanted to shout y'all out. Appreciate all the love and support, encouragement, and feedback. And to those of you who are just tuning in with us, looking forward to starting this journey with you and supporting you along your journey as we go on this Continental Shifts journey together. So with that, Estella, is it time for us to wrap up this episode?
Yep. Fa'afatai, Talalava, thank you for listening.
Salamat, thank you for listening.
We want to thank you all one more time for joining us today. We really, really, really appreciate all your love and support.
Continental Shifts podcast can be found on Podbean, Apple, Spotify, Google, and Stitcher.
Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube for archived footage and grab some merch on our site.
And join our mailing list for updates at conshiftspodcast.com. That's CONSHIFTS podcast.com. And follow us at con_shifts on all social media platforms.
Dope educators, wayfinding the past, present, and future.
Keep rocking with us, fam. We're going to make continental shifts through dialogue, with love, and together.
Fa'afatai, thanks again, and tofa. Deuces.
Peace, family. See you next time.